All right. Welcome, everybody, to another session of Gentle Chair Yoga, uh, brought to you by the Public Library of Brookline. Um, I wanted to thank our uh, I wanted to thank our sponsors, the Friends of the Brookline Public Library, for sponsoring this program and programs like it. I also wanted to recognize our community partners, Brookline Interactive Group, for uh, streaming this program to their Facebook page, their YouTube page, as well as RCN and Xfinity local channel 3. Um, as always, the participation in this online yoga program could result in injury. Not all exercises presented here are suitable for everyone. These exercises are not intended to substitute for proper medical care or advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any exercise program. The creators, teachers, and producers assume no responsibility for injuries from the participation in this program. And with that, I give you Keith.
Hi, good morning. Let's start in mountain pose. So you'll have a choice here, or we try to give choices. It's nice to have a choice because we're all a little bit different, and yoga is especially historically recognizes that people are different, and used to always be taught one-on-one. Group classes were something that were never done because everybody's a little different. But so you have a choice here. You can sit in mountain pose, or if you wanted, if you've been sitting for a while and you prefer, you could stand in mountain pose. And the instructions are very similar. So I'm going to start by sitting. We want to start by feeling the bottoms of the feet. So really connecting the soles of the feet into the floor. And we can do that. Imagine we're pressing the feet down a little bit. So if you're standing, bend the knees ever so slightly and then straighten the legs. So it would be like this, bending the knees ever so slightly. I'll turn sideways so you can see. Notice my knees are bending just a little. And then I'm straightening like this and bending and straightening. And if you're seated, think about pressing the feet down by activating the quadriceps here. So the quadriceps are right on the tops of the thighs. So we press the feet down. In order to get that feeling, you could try leaning forward a little bit as if you were going to stand up. Because when we stand up, we have to move the weight into the feet, and the quadriceps start to lift us up. So if I'm seated, I'm getting this isometric contraction in the tops of the thighs. And if I'm standing, there's a very slight bend in the knees. And then from there, I'm pressing the feet down. I'm feeling the sitting bones and the buttocks underneath me if I'm seated. And I'm extending the spine up. And perhaps timing or coordinating the feeling of lifting with the breath so that I'm inhaling as I'm extending the spine up. So imagine there's this feeling of lengthening this up the center of the body, especially the spine, that travels up all the way up through the crown of the head, almost like the crown of the head is floating up. So the back of the neck lengthens. We want to keep the chin level with the floor. Try not to lift. Sometimes there's a tendency to want to extend by lifting the chin up. Try to avoid that. The other thing that you could do is, if you're seated, you could put your hands between the thighs like this. Make a couple of fists and very gently squeeze the thighs together to activate the inner thighs. And if you're standing, think about moving the sitting bones together. Think about, so the sitting bones are right up under here in the groin. Think about squeezing the sitting bones together and see if you can get the inner thighs to lift up. And that helps to lift the arches of the feet. So when we lift up here, it goes all the way down to the feet, to the soles of the feet. And from there, that's another way that we lift the body and extend the spine up. And we can even give a little sigh as we exhale. So sighing is one of the natural ways that we have a relaxation response, or we generate a relaxation response in the body. The sigh of relief. So try a few more breaths like that. Inhaling, extending the spine up. Exhaling, softening, relaxing the shoulders, relaxing the arms, relaxing the hands and the fingers. It can be nice to close the eyes here too. Perhaps not if you're standing, but if your balance is very good, you could do it potentially standing. I just want to be careful about balance. We always want to feel like it's hard to relax, it's hard to stay centered if we feel uncomfortable. So we want to feel like we're in control of our balance. So for this class, remember it's a chair class. So we use the chair not just to sit on. We'll do that sometimes, but as a prop that can help with our balance. And we'll do more of that later on. And then we'll start with the sound of Om. So the Om sound is a way to activate the voice, set up vibrations, and especially we have all these hollow places in our body, and when we make a sound, those vibrations travel into those hollow spaces like kind of like a cave, and that includes the sinuses as well as the lungs and the internal cavities in the chest. So the Om sound is the ah. Notice the mouth is nice and big, and O shape of the mouth, the O shape with the lips, and the kind of like a bee buzzing. We close the mouth, and there's one right after the other. So it's natural breath. So it's important to breathe naturally so we stay relaxed. So there's some effort going on, but there's also a relaxation part, or a letting go part. So let's sit up nice and tall and just take a couple of natural breaths. And then we'll take a regular natural breath, and we'll begin, and we'll do Oms for about 30 seconds or so. Since you'll be able to hear me, I can't hear you. Don't worry about whether we're in sync or even in key. Think about the smoothness of the Om sound. So develop your own unique Om sound that you find that you like, that helps feel the vibration in the chest and the throat, and maybe even up into the sinuses or the jaw. Those vibrations. So we'll inhale. Relaxing the shoulders, the arms, and the hands and fingers. Softening the face and the eyes. Releasing the jaw, the tongue, and the throat. Extending the spine gently towards the sky. That's one. And noticing the silence. And then bringing the palms together. That was our yoga for the voice. Yoga for the voice. If you get a chance, try it every day, or even try it a couple times a day. It's they know that singing makes us feel better. When people sing, they feel better. It releases, it changes. I think it's I don't know if it's endorphins. There's chemicals in the body that are released when we sing and when we dance. We won't dance during yoga class, but dancing is another way we feel better. We feel better. And we'll inhale. We have our hands together. We'll inhale and we'll sweep the arms around. Inhale up and exhale around. So the inhalation is this lifting up, especially in the front of the body, but this elongation of the spine, almost like the upper body is getting lighter and the feet are grounding. So there's this movement down away from the pelvis into the earth, and then this movement up towards the sky. Thinking about the movement up more when we inhale and the hands are going up, and as the hands are coming down and we're exhaling, think about that grounding into the earth, feeling the movement down into the feet. But I'm still sitting up tall, so don't collapse. We're inhaling. And remember, we're going at our own pace here. We're following our own breath. So you'll probably look different than me. You'll probably look different. And also sometimes, I'll stop to demonstrate something, but please don't stop unless you need to stop. And that's the other part about our yoga classes. We pay enough attention. We use our discernment to decide what is good for us and what maybe we shouldn't do. So we have to think about it or feel it and then make a decision. And we're going to go back the other way. We're going to bring the palms together. Pause there for a moment. Press the palms into one another and notice that there's evenness. So I'll turn my hand so you can see. Notice the fingers are spread approximately evenly apart. So everybody's a little different. Don't force them apart, but see if you can bring some evenness, even if it's like this. And then gently press the palms so that the two palms begin to feel as if they're one. Relaxing the shoulders down as you extend the spine up, softening face and eyes. And now as you exhale, relax and let the hands float down and then turn the palms up. Inhale and they float up and come together. And then we exhale, they come down. So now we're going to be circling the opposite direction from what we were doing before. Feeling the feet grounded, even potentially gently pressing the feet down. So you could continue to do this. If you were standing and you wanted to do this standing, you could, like this. And notice that as my hands come down, as I exhale, there's a slight bend in the knees. And as I inhale, I straighten the legs. See if you can time it. Just like with the contraction of the quadriceps, if you're seated, see if you can time it. So the hands are going up when the legs are straightening and the hands are coming down as the slight bend in the knees happens. Making sure you're always keeping the knees straight ahead. Don't let them turn out. So we'll do this a few more times. So see if you can settle into whatever position you're in and settle into the movement. Accept the movement the way it feels today. as long as you're not having any discomfort or pain. So those are the things that tell us that we probably need to change what we're doing or stop what we're doing. So we will never practice pain in this class. It's only there to tell you to stop doing what it is you're doing. And we'll bring the hands, we'll pause right in front of the heart. We'll do a few cactus breaths. So we're going to sweep the hands apart, sweeping the hands out and back. So you have a few choices here. If you'd like to be a little freer with the movement, maybe feeling a little more graceful, you could kind of let the hands, notice how my wrists are bending a little bit as they come back. Or if you want it to be a little more, keep it really structured, you could open the hands like this and notice that my wrists are not bending here. My fingers are pointing up towards the ceiling. Go ahead and adjust the elbows so that the shoulders feel okay. We don't want to have the shoulders, we don't want the shoulders to ride up like this towards the ears. We want to keep the shoulders down away from the ears. And we feeling the heart. So no matter what we're doing here, no matter what movements we're doing, how exactly we're moving the arms and the shoulders, there's an opening in the chest here. So there's a broadening across the chest from the sternum to the inside of the fronts of the shoulders, or the armpit. Think about the armpit out here. So there's this movement, and that movement translates into the shoulder blades behind us. So we're feeling the shoulder blades gently moving together and then moving apart. So we're going to bring some mobility to the thoracic spine. You might even notice that my chin is lifting up slightly. I'm not trying to do that. So don't think about lifting the chin up. If it happens, it's okay. But don't make it part of the movement. Think about the chest moving. Oh, you also might notice a little bit of movement in the hips. This pelvic rocking back and forth with the hips. And again, we're not trying to do that. We're focusing on the heart moving forward and back. Keeping the shoulders relaxed. And go ahead and bring the arms down. And let's roll the shoulders a few times. So now we're lifting the shoulders up towards the ear. Let's try one shoulder and then the other. We'll do 1 and 2. It's important to allow the opposite shoulder, the one that's not lifting, to relax down. It's also, if you have your hands on your legs like this, you can feel the hands, the palms sliding across the thighs as you roll the shoulders back. So we're relaxing the arms and shoulders enough where the weight of the arms is just hanging down and it's just resting on the thighs. And let's go the other way. And then back the other way, we'll add a little swimming. Or if your shoulders feel okay, try adding a little swimming like this. So notice the hand is just sort of brushing along the brow like this. And the shoulder joint, so I'm not forcing the shoulder back. I'm allowing it to very easily move, but keeping some stability. And what that means is that I'm keeping enough muscular effort around the shoulder that the shoulder is stable. So that's an important for the shoulder joint, especially because the shoulder joint itself is a very shallow joint. It really relies on, especially the muscles around the shoulder to keep it in place. There's also tendons there and ligaments that sort of make everything into like a group that holds everything together. But the muscles are particularly important. Let's go the other way now. So reaching out and across, and begin to let the body turn a little bit as you reach out. So this would be as if you were swimming, as if you were doing the crawl stroke. I'm reaching out and letting the hand come down the outside of the opposite leg. And I'm letting this part of the body turn between the hip and the shoulder, or the hip and the chest. I'm letting it turn. So you'll feel a little bit of movement as if I was doing kind of a twist. So thinking about doing the dance, the twist. I don't think anybody does that anymore, but gets us start dancing anyway, that we were talking about before. And dancing makes us feel better. So I don't know if this connects to our dancing, but this is really good for our bowels. This movement, this gentle sort of pressing, because as we move, the muscles contract and they stretch, and they're pressing on especially the intestines, but all the internal organs. And it's really helpful for our bowels. And movement, especially these days, we don't get necessarily as much movement as we might otherwise get. Let's sit up nice and tall and just begin to go from side to side. And if you're up north, I mean, in the Boston area in the winter, it's so cold outside that we don't get out as much. And especially these days with all the stuff that's going on. I'm going to lift up the foot just a little bit. So the way we practice is we lift the heel up, and then we begin to lift the toes up. So the first step is just to get the heel. We want to feel like we're engaging the abdomen. So my belly's not sticking out here. If you want to, you can always put your hand with a little contraction. So this is my belly sticking out. I'm contracting enough. Notice the belly button goes back a little, and there's a firmness here. So when I lift up, I want to keep that gentle firmness here. So to make it more challenging, you can lift higher and try not to lean over so much. Try to stay more stable in the middle without moving. Really requires more effort. Not necessarily better. You might feel better with this sort of rocking movement. You have to decide which one is for you today. You can also use the arms, almost like we're walking. You could even do alternate arm and leg like this, or you could do the same like this. So there's a lot of choices. See what you like to do today. So even though these movements, in some ways, they're kind of simple, they don't have to be boring. There's a lot of different choices. And then go ahead and bring the hands and just rest the hands right, even the tops of the shoulders, or maybe right here in the front where the collarbones are. And lift the elbows up. I'm going to turn like this by moving one elbow back and then the other. Notice my head isn't turning relative to the shoulders. I'm not turning my head more to look over. Not yet. We may do that in a minute. Or we will turn the head in a minute. It's just to warm up a little bit more in the shoulders. So we should be a little bit warmed up. We've worked on the pelvic area, the core of the body, the abdomen, as well as the shoulders. And we're going to start by rocking the feet to do the more peripheral joints. I don't know if that's the right word for them, but the ones that aren't in the middle of the body. So I'm rocking, and notice how my knees are pointed straight ahead. If you do have a yoga block, it can be a handy prop to keep the legs and the knees aligned. So depending on the width of your hips, you may want to turn it this way. My hips are fairly narrow, so I use the narrow part of the block. You could also use a rolled up towel for this. Put some rubber, roll up a hand towel or a small bath towel, put some rubber bands around it. And I'm activating this is a really good exercise for the ankles. It works the calves and the shins, as well as it works on the flexors for the ankle. And sometimes as we get a little older, we don't get as much, we bend in the fronts of the ankles especially. And that's an important part of when we walk. If we lose flexibility there, we don't ambulate as well. So this rocking back and forth, and you can even add the hands here. Add the hands. You could even circle the hands like this. So either sweeping the hands or circling is a little more, it's a little more challenging because the movement isn't as similar to the rocking of the feet. And then let's go the other way. So it might take a little more practice to do the circles. It's like patting your head and and circling your tummy. With those things are not, we don't normally do those things. We don't normally do anything similar to that. So let's sit up nice and tall and go ahead and pat one knee, lift it up, and go ahead and swing the knee like this. And then go ahead and rest, and then swing the other knee. And if you're not all the way in the back of the chair, you might want to use the back of the chair to make it a little easier to keep the spine extended. So we lift the feet a little off the floor, and we're going to circle the ankles. Making sure the knees aren't moving. If you need to, hold the knees like this with the hands. So we want the movement to come down here, not in the knees. The knees are not designed, they do not work well going in a circle. It's actually, it can be hurtful for them to go. The knees are a hinge joint, they go like this. But the ankles move, kind of like the wrists. Add the wrists to it. So the wrists and the ankles are really similar. If you look at the diagrams of the bones, they have all these little bones in both the ankle and the wrist. Kind of look the same. And then try to slow it down a little bit and see what happens. And as you slow it down, think about sitting up a little taller. So go ahead and extending the spine up, keeping length. So without the feet on the floor, it's harder to lift ourselves, to keep our good posture. That's why, go ahead and bring the feet down, please. That's why when we sit, if we really want to have good posture and sit for a long time, both feet on the floor and evenly like this is better than things like this. When we do this, we only have one foot supporting us, and there's a tendency for us to, even though we might not notice it, we have a tendency to lean towards one side. And of course, when we lean towards one side, the whole spine leans over and it compensates. Part of it leans over and part of it bends back to keep our head centered. So when you notice that you've crossed your leg, or you're sitting some way where you're not on your feet, perhaps consider sitting back up, readjusting yourself, finding your sitting bones in your chair, finding your feet evenly on the floor, and then sitting up nice and tall. And you might notice if you do meditation that this particular position is very similar, except for the legs being crossed. If you were seated on the floor, You would have the buttocks even, and you'd have the legs probably crossed, or perhaps you're in lotus position um, with the feet on the insides of the thighs. But it's a nice stable position. And sitting up nice and tall. And then sliding forward in the chair. So go ahead and slide forward till your sitting bones come near the edge of the chair. So my thighs are out in space, and just don't fall off the chair. That's not good. And we're going to start to circle around. I'm going to start out just with the hands on the knees like this. But you could, if you wanted more of a challenge, you could get the hands circling around like you're stirring something, pot of soup. You could even have the hands going a little bigger with the circles. So these are getting more challenging. You're only getting more challenging if you can keep the spine extended and you can keep the abdomen engaged and no pain or discomfort in the back. We don't want to have any pain or discomfort in the back when we do this exercise. Let's go the other way. You could even have the hands swinging overhead. As well as slowing down a little bit. That probably makes it a little harder, but you could experiment with that. But for many of us, just this circling around, it's a nice feeling, extending the spine. So notice that I'm looking forward. Try not to look down. That rounds the back. We round over. We want to extend up. So there's the bending. So keep circling. The bending is coming right down where the top of the thigh meets the hip. So if you know, so I have my hands in here. So the bending, it's almost like my belly is coming down towards my thigh as I come forward. And as I go back, notice I'm not rounding the spine. The spine is still either straight or I have that lumbar curve. In order to do that, I have to have enough firmness in the belly to support the back as I go back. So that's what we work towards. We work towards the firmness in the belly, the lengthening of the spine, so that I'm able to move without bending in the opposite direction with the lower back. And sitting up nice and tall. Take a couple of breaths. And if you want support for the back now, you can slide back into the chair. The good thing about a chair is that when I slide back, I can lean back a little bit too. And the chair will support the opening of the chest a little bit. So there's this opening, and I'm trying not to drop my head, but sometimes we get this feeling that it's nice. It might feel nice to drop the head way back. A little bit is okay, but not too much. We don't want to compress the vertebra in the neck. Those are the smallest vertebrae, so sometimes they're the easiest to aggravate. And then come back down and sit up nice and tall. And let's see. So we need to do the neck. So let's sit up nice and tall and lift the chin slightly, and then release the chin down. So I'm going to go up and down, keeping the spine extended. So the spine may curve a little bit, but don't sacrifice don't let the spine do a big curve like this to allow the chin to come down more. We want to keep length in the spine, even as the chin is going up and down. So see if you can find some ease here, relaxing the jaw and the tongue and the throat. letting the weight of the head do the work here. I'm not forcing anything. Just when the chin comes down, there's plenty of weight from the head to stretch the back of the neck. And then I'm going to tip the head. So the ear, so the head here really stays in the plane with the torso, but the ear comes closer to the shoulder. It's almost like my face is still pointed straight ahead, but it's going like this. As if you had a picture, you'd be tipping the picture like this, but you're not tipping the picture forward and back this way. So it would be like this. Letting the weight of the head do the work here too. And if you want, you could use your hands as a pillow. We've done that before. That's a nice way to relax. Nice way to relax. And let's massage the ears now. I'm going to start down at the earlobes and give them a little massage like this. So we work our way. So there's no pain when I do this. It's just a little bit of a slight squeeze of the ear, sort of like we're rubbing. If you've ever made little pastas, some of the pastas that you make, you sort of rub them together. Like you take little pieces and then you'll rub them to make them even. Think about that. And I'm going all the way up to the tops of the ears and then going back down the other way. This helps to make it a little easier to turn the head from side to side. Now let's try turning the head. Keeping the jaw and tongue and throat relaxed here. I prefer to do this with the eyes closed and not worry. I don't worry about seeing anything. I don't worry about how far. You could even take your hand and sweep the hand back and forth. Think of the hand as being this gracefulness in the arm and the hand. And let that gracefulness transfer to the neck. You could switch hands if you wanted. You get to do both sides, both hands. And see if it feels a little different. You know, the shoulders are slightly different. The movement of the shoulders, the symmetries, our shoulders are not symmetrical. And so you might feel slightly different in the movement of the head from side to side. And then we're going to circle the head around. And again, if you wanted to, you could even add the hand to it like this. And then let's switch and go the other way. And if you were doing your hand before, go ahead and try the opposite hand. And come back up and roll the shoulders a few times, then the other way. And a few cactus breaths. I'd like to do one more exercise, yoga for the voice. We'll do Brahmari. So Brahmari is that bumblebee sound. So we'll go ahead and remember it starts small, gets largest in the middle, and then it gets small again. Imagine a bee flying by, soft in the beginning. As it gets close to you, it's louder. And then as it flies away, it gets softer again. Think about smoothness. We'll do that for about 30 seconds. Just take a couple of breaths, nice normal breath in, and begin whenever you're ready. Feeling the vibrations in the throat. Relaxing the jaw, softening the eyes, just breathing normally. So we're going to transition to a standing. If after Brahma you need a little water, sometimes a couple of sips, we get a little ticklish in the throat from that. You might have noticed, you might have felt the vibrations up, especially in the jaw, that everything starts to vibrate. And we're going to stand up, or you can remain seated. For those who are standing, we'll go ahead and stand up. Remember to have your chair handy, or if you're fortunate enough to have two chairs, you could have one behind you and one in front. We're going to start with our mountain pose, standing just for a couple of moments. Bending the knees slightly and straightening and extending up. So imagine that you can feel the feet pressing, and as you straighten the legs, there's this movement up, and then the movement continues up the spine, up the back of the neck. Back of the neck is lengthening, and the shoulders are hanging down, almost like a rocket taking off, right? A rocket is streamlined. So our shoulders are down like this, and the rocket is lifting up with the breath, with the inhalation, and then slight exhalation. You can do the same thing seated. Same thing seated. We're pressing the feet down and lifting up. Pressing the feet down and lifting up. You might notice the heart lifting and opening as the spine lifts up. So these are we call them micro movements. They're small movements. And so, maybe a quarter of an inch. It's really the engagement. We're trying to get the body to engage the muscles and move in one direction, even if it's only this much. It's not the amount that matters. It's the coordination of everything together and that feeling of lifting. And let's do tree pose. So for tree pose, we'll stand or sit up nice and tall, and then we're going to step the foot out to the side. So the weight shifts into the straight leg, and so the foot's pressing down as we open the groin here. Let's do this a few times, stepping out and back. Try not to lean over. So if you can, think about compacting the hips together. So the gluteal muscles here are firmed up as we step out like this. You could even add the arms if you wanted like this. Maybe opening and back. We'll do the other side. So firming up the standing leg and stepping out. The opening, so the leg, it's actually the leg turning out rather than the foot. Our thigh turns out. Our thigh turns out. And if you have balance, if you have any concerns about balance, you can keep one hand on your chair as you do this. So we have a lot of choices. Firming up the buttocks and then extending the spine, then coming back down. And now let's, and if you're seated, it's really the same thing. Try sliding towards the front of the chair to do the tree pose if you're seated. So standing up nice and tall, and then we're going to turn the thigh out. So most of the weight's on this leg. You can even pat your buttocks and pat your leg. Feel that they're firm, and then extend the spine up as you bring the sole of the foot on the inside of the calf. Or you could keep the toes down like this. This will help with balance. Almost like putting your fingers on your chair like this. If you have your toes Most of my weight is on this standing foot. There's only a little tiny, I could even lift my toes up like this. Kind of like sometimes we lift our fingers off the chair. And then if I want, I can extend my arms like this. And elevate the gaze. Find a drishti point, something that feels nice. And settle into the pose. And then go ahead and come back down. And we'll do the other side. So come back to your evenness in mountain pose first. So come back as if you hadn't done tree pose on the other side. Find evenness in the feet, evenness in the spine, and then shift the weight over and turn the thigh out. So I'm finding that balance and extending the spine up. And if you want, you can bring the sole of the foot on the inside of the calf. And you can extend one arm or two arms, or you could even have the hands like this if you prefer. Or some people like the palms together overhead like this. I don't know, whatever you're feeling like today. I like this a lot because it makes me feel more like a tree. It also gives me a little better balance. And raise your gaze, raise your thoughts. Remember to keep breathing. And then whenever you're ready, you can come down. And let's stand behind our chair if you're standing. If you're seated, I'll show you in 1 second. So we're going to do this exercise where we step the foot back and notice how the ball of the foot, so the ball of the foot is right here, just underneath the toes. The ball of the foot is going to step onto the floor like this. And I'm not forcing it, I'm just stepping it back like that. And back. Let me just, the sun's a little bright. Let me just adjust this. So I'm going to step back and lift up at the same time. So I step back and I lift the heart up. So notice there's the bending that's coming like this. So my shape is, instead of rounding like this, my shape is like this. My rounding's on the other side. And this is good for opening the front hip joint and counteract our sitting. So we're going to step back. So try this a few times on each side. So perhaps do 5 or 6 on each side, or 3, whatever you feel like, and then switch. So you can always switch back. If you're seated, you'll move towards the edge of the chair. And you'll do the same thing, a similar thing. You have to lean a little bit to the side, but you can walk the foot back like this. And depending on how much flexibility you have in the hip, your foot may go further back or may only go back a little. So it's not really about how far it goes back. It's about how far does it move relative to opening the hip here. And of course, you only want to do this exercise for standing or seated. You only want to do it if it feels okay for the hips and the knees. So this is the opposite side, stepping forward and back. And this is a great thing if you can remember, if you're at the kitchen counter making dinner, just stop for a moment and take a few breaths like this. You could even pause here for a moment with the foot back, so you get that nice shape, that nice curved shape on the front of the body. And just pause there for a minute. Just remember to breathe. Perhaps sigh and relax the shoulders. It's nice. And let's come back for a moment to our mountain pose. So for mountain pose, we can do, we'll do chair pose. And chair pose is a little bit of bending like this and straightening. And we'll do it with the hands. You can do it with the hands out like this for balance, or you could do it with the hands on the hips. So your choice. So with chair pose, we sit down as if, almost like we were going to sit down in a chair. So if I had my chair like this, and this is a good pose to do to build strength in the thighs and the buttocks. So we want the buttocks engaged, the thighs engaged, and also the abdomen as we do this. And the weight begins to shift back into the heels a little bit as I sit down. But notice I'm not sitting down. I'm not going all the way down in my chair. So for most of us, it would be very challenging to go all the way down and sit down from this position. It's hard, especially on the knees and the lower back. So if you have any knee pain or lower back pain or discomfort, then you're going down too far. So for chair pose, the knees need to go straight ahead, and also they're about hip width apart. So we do this a few times, almost like we're going to sit down and then coming back up. Think about firming up the buttocks. You could even, before you sit down, if you put your hands on the buttocks like this, try squeezing them together so you can feel that they get harder. And then keep that firmness as you begin to bend the knees slightly. So we teach the gluteal muscles to stay turned on as we begin to bend the knees. And it actually helps support the knees. It's good for the knee joints to have that happen. Sometimes the gluteal muscles don't, we sit so much, they don't turn on so easily. So that's a good way, squeezing them together and even releasing them. So if I put my hands here, I can actually feel them when they're contracted. So I think about squeezing them together and then relaxing them. And you'll feel them, they kind of go, as you squeeze, they move together. And then as you relax, they go out to the side again. And you might notice that my knees bend a little bit in conjunction with the squeezing. They kind of go together. And sometimes one buttock works better than the other. So you may have to spend a little bit more mental effort getting the other one to work for you. And sitting up nice and tall, we're going to sit back down in our seats. So you have your choice here. If you're feeling a little tired, you can slide all the way back in the chair and use the back of the chair. And if you're feeling like it's not enough, please slide forward in the chair. We're not done yet. So we're going to start to rock from side to side. And we're going to do our eagle arms and eagle legs. So we've been working on this. So it's arm over arm and then opposite leg over opposite leg. So if I do left arm over right arm like this, and I will do right leg over left leg. So we have a choice on the legs. We can cross the ankles, or we can cross the knees if that's accessible. But we don't want to force the knees like this. So you could even work like this if you wanted, even with the ankle on the knee. So you have to sort of decide which one. Try each one. We don't want to generate any pain, and we want the knee to not be. Remember, the knee joint doesn't bend sideways. It doesn't bend in this direction. It bends this way. So the movement's actually coming in the hip joint when we do this crossing of the legs, or ideally it's coming more from the hip, not so much from the knee. So this is, let's see, so right over left, and then we have left over right. And then notice how the elbows are crossed, and then we'll intertwine like this and take a couple of breaths. You could also work with a belt, a strap, a scarf, anything to be able to link the hands together like this. And inhaling, sitting up nice and tall. Relaxing the shoulders. So it's important in this pose to relax the shoulders and the hips and the knees and think more about lengthening the spine up. So notice my elbows are even a little dropped. If you want more of a challenge, if you're lifting the elbows up and then moving the elbows away to open the shoulder blades a little bit more, it becomes more of a challenge. Without the shoulders riding up though. And remember, you can release at any time. So go ahead and undo the arms and undo the legs. We'll do the other side now. So this one is we have the left over right for the legs, and we have the right over left for the elbows, and then intertwining and sitting up nice and tall. Relaxing the shoulders, softening the face and eyes. Remember to breathe with some ease. And then go ahead and unintertwine, and go ahead and uncross the legs. We'll sit up nice and tall. We'll bring your palms together. You can use the back of the chair here if you want. And we'll take a few breaths, opening the heart, lifting the hands up. And then we'll go back the other way. Keeping the shoulders relaxed here. And then a couple of cactus breaths. Shoulders are nice and relaxed. Face is soft. And then we're going to settle into our Shavasana. So for most of us, using the back of the chair is nice for this. You could also do this laying down on the floor. Perhaps covering yourself with a blanket. If you need a little bit of extra warmth, we tend to cool down literally as we begin to cool down from our exercises. Our temperature drops and we can get cold, and that it's hard to relax if we're cold. So sitting up nice and tall, relaxing the shoulders. So for the first few breaths, think about inhaling and gently extending the spine up. So not too much, not over efforting though, just a little bit of effort. And then as you exhale, softening the shoulders and the eyes and the face. And noticing the belly going in and out with the breath. So as we breathe in, belly gets a little bigger. And as we breathe out, we feel the belly move back. You can always rest your hand there to help feel that. And softening the face and the eyes and the jaw. We'll continue like this for about another minute, and then if you'd like to continue with your the Shavasana with the meditative experience, try going for another 5 or 10 minutes in Shavasana, just breathing and relaxing. And keeping the attention focused internally. Just feeling what's going on with the breath. Feeling what's going on as we release and we let the body relax. So we'll continue for about a minute, and I'll tap our bell. That'll indicate the formal end of the class. And then please continue if you so desire. I'll see everyone next time.